Hey folks, Mike from LI Flies Mike here, and today we're going to be tying another Pop Flies special. As always, the full list of materials will be down in the description below. So we're going to get started off here by tying some lawn white bucktail, and we're going to make sure that this is tied 360 degrees evenly around the hook. This is pretty important. We're going to be tying most of our bucktail, ensuring that it covers around the hook shank fully. So be sure to spread that bucktail around and make sure you get a nice even coverage. And we're starting this tie off right around where the hook point is. It's important to keep our ties neat. You'll see further on as we tie more bucktail on, but just ensure that you're wrapping your thread nice and neat and not tying too much on there. So now taking some Ostrich Herl and some lawn silver flash here, I'm just going to loop this and tie this on after the Ostrich Herl. You don't have to, you could tie this fly entirely with bucktail, but I like adding some different materials in there. Now we're essentially just going to tie another collar in front of our tail section. This is the same sort of thing you would do with a Bucktail Deceiver, where we just move forward up in front of our last tie and tie in another lawn collar of bucktail. I will say it's important, we're going to start tapering the bucktail down from the tail section. So this section of bucktail is slightly shorter than the last, and each next tie of bucktail that we put in there is going to be shorter than the previous one. Now you can see here I am making sure to have a nice even thread wrapping. This is going to form the base or platform that we're now going to tie a stiffer section of bucktail and start spinning it on the hook shank, almost like if we would deer belly. It's important to take bucktail from either the midsection to the lower section of the tail. Generally, bucktail from those areas are much stiffer, and it's going to be important. We're essentially getting a mix between either bucktail and deer belly, right? We're going to be almost spinning this hair on here. For our first bulkhead tie, we have the ends of the bucktail left nice and long, and it's important that these extend past the hook eye. And we're going to start actually tying this in like we would almost like deer belly. And you can see how it naturally kind of wants to spin on us. It is important that we start this tie on the thread wrapping of our last collar. So keep that in mind. Something that Popovics recommends is trimming some of the hair closest to the hook shank on the inside. That'll help start get a natural taper to the head once we have a finished fly. Now folding this back like a hollow fly, we're just going to wrap in front and build a thread dam, and we're looking for somewhere like a 45 to 60 degree angle on that hair that we folded back. You want some tension on there. And blending some nice white and lavender bucktail, again looking to use the stiffer hairs from further down on the bucktail. We're going to be tying this in right on the thread basing from our last collar. So essentially we want our ties to be fairly close together so we can keep a nice head when we trim it. And being sure to add some more bucktail where you see fit so you have a nice even amount of bucktail 360 degrees fully around the hook shank. Now once you start getting further up the hook towards the hook eye, Popovics mentions you can actually just trim the material straight, and you see here how it actually forms a nice taper to it, giving us a start on our taper for the head when we trim it later on. So once you get past the point where you can actually trim the bucktail past the hook eye, feel free to do that to just make it easier for yourself. So for the last section here, I'm taking some lavender, some pink, some purple, blending it all together. And I'm essentially just tying this in right on top of our last tie. Same thing, covering the hook shank 360 degrees, adding some material on the bottom if need be to help build the profile. Just like a hollow fly, it's always important to keep your thread wraps even top and bottom, so that way the head of the fly, or the collar when you fold it back and build that thread dam, is even, and you don't see any unevenness to where the material is folded back. I'm just going to wrap up my thread here so that the fly is durable. I'm going to throw a couple whip finishes on here, and then we'll go ahead and apply some head cement. You can see here the butt sections of the bucktail. To make the fly easier to trim, Popovics recommended wetting the fly, and this will allow you to pull back the longer hairs and see the taper of the fly, and then you can go ahead and trim the stiffer butt sections that are left over. Now, I will say trimming the head is personal preference. As always, go slowly, don't take too much material off, and I like to angle my scissors outwards so I don't actually cut too much material off. If you want a bulkier head that pushes more water, just trim less of the material. And if you want a fly that sinks quicker and perhaps is less wind resistant, you can just trim it more. But what I recommend is going slowly so you don't end up trimming too much material off. I'm going for a smaller peanut bunker, medium-sized juvenile bunker pattern. So I'm just trimming the head and the shape to the proportions that I like. One thing I will say is don't worry too much about getting the head perfect. These flies are meant to be kind of buggy and fishy looking. The head doesn't need to be perfectly even trimmed like a deer hair snake fly or something. Just trim them to where you like it, go out and fish them and see how they react, right? You'd be surprised how good they look in the water once they start moving. You can see here the finished bulkhead by Bob Popovics. I'm still working on this particular technique. I've been doing hollow flies and bucktail deceivers for years, but I'd like to tie more bulkheads. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Also, if you haven't checked out any of Bob Popovics' books, please do. Unfortunately, he passed away earlier this year. We lost a legend, so I highly recommend checking any of his fly tying books out there. It's a wealth of information. Well, my name is Mike here from LI Flies Mike. Thank you so much for watching. We have new videos coming out every week as well as live fly tying. Till the next one, we'll see you. Tight lines.